Let me ask you something. Why do you reach for a specific brand of toothpaste when they all basically do the same thing? Why do you recognize a logo from across a highway going about 70 miles per hour? Why does a poster make you stop mid-walk and another completely disappears in the background? That is not accidental. There is actually a moment in history where graphic design stopped being passive, when it stopped simply organizing information, when it stopped quietly serving content, and it realized, oh, I can actually influence people. That moment, it was a revolution, because when factories started producing goods at a rate and a scale that no one had ever seen before, design faced a new challenge. If everyone can make something, then how do you make people choose yours? If part 2 was about structures and systems, part 3 is about strategy. This is the era where designers learned how to sell. Let's zoom into the 18th and 19th centuries. Machines are replacing handmade labor. Factories are producing textiles, soap, packaged goods, canned food, alcohol, printed material, all at scale. Urban populations are rising, cities are growing, and consumers are emerging. And here's the big shift. Before industrialization, most goods were local and handmade. You knew your baker, you knew the tailor, you knew the person who made your shoes. There wasn't a branding problem because there wasn't distance between the producer and consumer. But industrialization, it broke that intimacy. Now products travel. Now companies could sell beyond their neighborhood. Now strangers are selling to strangers. And that changed everything. And meanwhile, printing technology evolves. Steam-powered presses increase dramatically. Paper becomes cheaper. Lithography improves. Color printing becomes more viable. Printing is no longer elite. It becomes something that is scalable. And suddenly design escapes the book, and it moves on to things like posters, product labels, newspapers, street advertisements, packaging. Graphic design is no longer confined to intellectual spaces. It becomes commercial. And here's the tension. If everyone could print, everyone could advertise. If everyone could produce at scale, how do you stand out? This era was the birth of visual competition. And once competition exists, then design can't simply be beautiful. It has to be effective. Now let's talk about the streets. Paris, London, major cities. Walls become layered with posters. Public spaces become a battlefield of visuals. Enter Jules Chéret. He's often called the father of modern posters. He uses vibrant color lithographies to create dynamic and theatrical posters. His posters advertise cabarets, performances, consumer products, but it doesn't feel like every other dry announcement. They feel energetic, playful, alive. Then we get Henri de Toulouse-Lautrec. His work advertising Paris nightlife, bold silhouettes, flat color blocks, dramatic cropping, strong compositions. And here's what's revolutionary. These posters, they weren't just informative. They were persuasive. They created a mood. They created aspiration. They made you feel like if you weren't attending the show, you were missing out. And this is where art collides with commerce. And here's the bold take. This is when design officially becomes marketing. This is where design stops whispering and starts shouting. Cities become saturated with imagery competing for your attention. Design becomes public and it becomes very visual. It becomes very loud, and this is where it gets emotional. And here is where things get very strategic. Mass production creates sameness. 10 companies produce soap. 10 companies produce beer. There's 10 companies out there that produce chocolate. Products start to look interchangeable. And if the product looks interchangeable, the only way to stand out is with identity. And this is where branding is born. Logos, trademarks, consistent packaging, recognizable color systems. Let's talk specifics. Bass & Co. In 1876, they registered their trademark in the UK. A red triangle. Simple, bold, protected by the law. That's not decoration, that's strategy. And then there's Coca-Cola. Their script logo appears in 1880. Consistent, repeated, recognizable. The bottle evolves, the campaign evolves, but the brand identity remains cohesive. Then there's Cadbury. Their rich purple packaging, distinctive, emotional, memorable. Color becomes ownership. Typography becomes personality. Repetition becomes trust. And this is where marketing design proves its power, because this era demonstrates something crucial. Design is differentiation, not decoration. It is the very way that you carve space in a crowded market. It is how you become recognizable. It is the way that you build memory. Branding emerges because competition demands it. Without competition, branding doesn't matter. And with competition, branding becomes survival. As competition intensifies, design adapts again. Typography grows bolder. Headlines become larger. Hierarchy sharpens. Layout experimentation, it increases. Designers start asking, how fast can someone understand this? How quickly can we capture attention? How do we lead the eye? Contrast becomes weaponized. Scale becomes something that's very intentional. And visual flow becomes calculated. Designers are no longer just artisans crafting beautiful layouts. They are solving real-world problems. How do we sell more? How do we stand out? How do we influence behavior? Does this all sound familiar? Because all of this is modern-day brand thinking. This era lays down the foundation for headline culture, emotional advertising, visual persuasion techniques. And this is where design shifts from something purely aesthetic to psychological. Design starts studying attention, memory, desire. And once design taps into psychology, it becomes powerful. Okay, now zoom out. Design is everywhere. Billboards tower over streets. Magazine spreads glamorize lifestyles. Newspapers are filled to the brim with advertisements. Public spaces are saturated with visuals. Design leaves the page and enters the streets. It enters our daily lives. And once design becomes environmental, it becomes unavoidable. This is where people start forming emotional attachments to brands. Brand recognition becomes cultural currency. Design becomes influencing behavior at scale. What you buy, where you go, what you trust. Design, it's no longer passive. It shapes our entire culture at this point. It shapes consumer identity, and it sets the stage for what comes next. Because when persuasion becomes powerful, someone eventually tries to standardize it. So I think this is a good point to recap. Part 1 was all about humans communicating visually. Part 2 was where structure emerges, systems, order. And this part 3, this is where strategy enters the picture. Design learns to sell. It learns to persuade. It learns how to compete. But what happens when corporations grow massive? When global brands start to dominate? When modernism demands clarity and efficiency? That's part 4. Because after strategy comes standardization. And that is where graphic design truly becomes modern. But okay, guys, that's all I have for you right now. I hope you enjoyed this video. And if you did, go ahead and give it a like. Subscribe for more just like this because I make videos every single week. And I'll see you in the next one. Bye.